If you intend driving this pass, it's important to watch part 1 first, as it contains important information as well as the Google Earth orientation clips. This video starts at the 4.4 kilometer point just before the first false summit at the Farm Avon Heights. Suddenly the road makes an abrupt change in direction at the point where the gradient levels off briefly, where a farm gate and dwelling appears directly in front of you. The altitude here is 1,072 meters. Be careful along this stretch, as there are cows, pigs, sheep and goats in the fields next to the road and often crossing the road itself. The road now follows a northwesterly heading past some tall pine trees with rolling grassy meadows on either side and even descends briefly to the 6.2 kilometer point. The average driver could not be blamed for thinking the summit had been reached, but this point is just a false summit and it's only about 1/3 of the way up the pass. This is a long pass and the speeds have to be slow by necessity. It will take a good 40 minutes to drive the whole 11 kilometers, and that excludes stops. You also need to make allowances for the return leg, depending on your routing for the day and whether you intend simply descending the way you arrived. At the 5.7 kilometer mark, the road turns gradually around a buttress via a wide 90-degree bend, taking the direction from northeast to northwest. For the next 4 kilometers, the gradient remains at a fairly steady 1 in 14, and the views are not quite as dramatic as the first section. The region around Somerset East offers very good trout fishing on 5 local dams, as well as rainbow and brown trout fishing in the Glen Avon waterfall pools. Amongst the many noteworthy buildings in the town are the old Wesleyan Chapel, which now houses the Somerset East Museum, and the Officers' Mess, which houses the largest collection of paintings by the renowned South African artist Walter Battus. Annual events in Somerset East include the Biltong Festival, which was started in 1991, and the Breintjieshoogte Marathon and Cycle Tour, which is run between Pierston and Somerset East. There's also the Spring Rose and Flower Show, and Somerset East is known to produce some of the finest roses in the country. The first settler in this area was Willem Prinsloo. He settled under the Boschberg, very close to where the museum is today. Prinsloo was the unofficial field cornet of the district, where at least 20 other families had settled by 1774. They sent a petition to Cape Town asking for the establishment of a drosty and a church in the area, which led to the establishment of Graaf Reinet. At some stage, Prinsloo gave up parts of his farm, and a farmer named Jacobus Otto moved into the corner now known as Bester's Hoek. He was followed by the Trichard and Bester families. Lord Charles Somerset, taking up the ideas promulgated by Cradock and Caledon that there should be a settlement on the eastern frontier, initiated a plan for an experimental farm in this area. An American botanist, Dr. Maccrill, was given orders to find a suitable farm and was told to look at 3 places. These were the Gamtoos Valley, the Swartkops Valley and the Boschberg. He chose the Boschberg. The farm was established in 1815 for the purpose of improving stock breeding in the Cape Colony and providing produce for the soldiers at the frontier. It was named Somerset Farm. In 1825 the project was cancelled. A new drosty was declared and the town of Somerset was established. The east part was only added 30 years later. There are many old buildings in Somerset East, and one that must be visited is the Little Mill at 47 Paulet Street. This charming little building on the corner of Paulet and Beaufort Streets is thought to have been a mill once, and is one of the original buildings of the Somerset Farm. The French ornithologist Francois Levaillant, born in French Guinea, came to southern Africa in 1781 at the age of 28 after training as an ornithologist in Europe. His first expedition took him east as far as the Great Fish River, and he was in the area around present-day Somerset East and Cookhouse towards the end of 1781. The charming and eccentric Frenchman travelled with a large contingent in 3 ox wagons. His entourage included Kies, a baboon who served as food taster and companion, and a cock which was his alarm clock. He wrote a highly dramatized account of his adventures, which was translated into 7 languages and became the bestseller of the time. He also published a 6-volume book set on birds. The compass swings more into the west, and at the 10-kilometer mark, the road kisses the lip of the ravine to the west. Pick yourself a spot with unobstructed views down into the valley far below and savor the solitude and grand views. In the right light, this is a great spot for landscape photographers. About 1 kilometer beyond this view site, you'll arrive at a fork in the road. If you take the left-hand fork, it will take you to 2 outlying farms called Charlton and Hartfell. At the last farm, the road becomes a dead end, so you may as well turn around at the fork as the most practical point. For those intending to descend via Slagter's Neck, take the right-hand fork past the Glen Craig farmstead. If you intend taking this option, you'll need at least a high-clearance vehicle and preferably a 4x4 if it's muddy. The next few hundred meters are easy and mostly level, but often wet and muddy after rain, and this part of the mountain enjoys high rainfall. The road dodges a few isolated pines and high-altitude views are left behind. At the 11.3 kilometer point, there's a fork in the road. If you intend driving the clockwise loop descending via Slagter's Neck and exiting at Hook House, you'll need to take the right-hand fork here. We do not recommend vehicles that are not four-wheel drive attempting this loop, as the road is very steep and rough in places.